Hello everybody. Today we are going to deal with the topic sampling methods. So before that, what do you mean by this term sampling? Sampling simply means it's a method of collection of data. In other words, we can say it's a process of getting a representative fraction of a population. So in a sampling method, we can say a small group of sample is further being collected from a large group of population, and that particular small group of sample is what we are, or a particular kind of a fraction of information or a data that is further being collected is what is called as sample. So when the population is very large or infinite, this sampling method or sampling is further being the best or option or the best suitable method for doing it. For example, we want to buy a particular kind of a group of grapes. So for collecting a group of grapes or for buying, what we do is that we actually taste either one of the grapes in it. That is the example which is further shown here. That is, one grape is tested before buying a bunch of grapes. Similarly, a length of a leaves of a neem tree can be further being calculated by measuring the 10 leaves. So, what are the different types of sampling? There are two main types of sampling: random and non random. Random sampling is mainly of five types. That is, we can say simple random sampling, systematic random sampling, like stratified random sampling, cluster random sampling, subsampling, or two-stage sampling. Now, the non-random sampling is mainly of three types. We can say judgmental, quota, and convenience. So, let us briefly look into each of them very clearly. First one is random sampling. As the name denotes, we can say this type of sampling mainly focuses on we are just randomly collecting a particular kind of data from the population, and then that is without any other kinds of predetermination or having any other kinds of idea. We are just randomly collecting that information, and that is what is called, and then doing sampling. That is what is called as random sampling. So in this method, each an item of a population have an equal and independent chance of being included in the sample, and this random sample is further being selected by lottery method. For example, each individual is given a number. Numbers are written on a piece of paper, and the papers are put in a box, and about 100 papers are usually being picked out. These individuals form a random sampling. The analysis of 100 individuals gives an idea of the entire population. Simply means we are directly collecting from the randomly collecting from a population, or just we are taking a lottery where each and every group of individuals have an equal chance of being selected. And among them, the first one is simple random sampling. It is exactly what I said before. Each and every individual have an equal chance of being selected. For example, if we are taking a lottery cheat, okay, and each and every one who had taken the lottery cheat have an equal chance of being a winner. That is a typical example of a simple random sampling. Now, next is stratified random sampling. As the name denotes, a particular kind of a sample or a population is divided into a strata or a group, and then a simple random sampling is further being done. For example, if we want to select a sample of 100 students from a population or a college population of 1,000 students consisting of 700 girls and 300 boys, the whole college population should be divided into two strata or groups, one with 700 girls, another with 300 boys. Now, by simple random sampling method, we will be selecting 70 girls from the total of 700 girls and 30 boys from the total of 300 boys. This sampling technique is generally recommended when the population is heterogeneous, which means we can apply this situation in our life. Okay, and in this method, the whole of the population is divided into strata or subgroups possessing the same or the similar characteristics. Samples are selected by taking the equal proportion of items from each group. Next is systematic sampling. This is a kind of sampling, as the name denotes itself, where a particular kind of sampling done in a very systematic manner. Either it will be in a perfect kind of alphabetical order, or in ascending order, or a chronological order. For example, we can say the person is listed alphabetically in a telephone directory. We can say it's further been written in an alphabetical order, right? A, B, C, D. Similarly, price quotations given regularly each week, and plants growing in rows in the fields, etc., are the typical examples. We are sampling in a very systematic way. It's called as systematic sampling. Now, the fourth one is cluster sampling. Cluster sampling means a population is further be divided into small clusters or groups, where then after that random sampling is further being done. And this sampling unit in a population is found to be in groups or clusters. Then from the operational point of view, the sampling may be carried out by selecting a sample of clusters and observing all the units of each selected cluster. This type of sampling is known as cluster sampling. Cluster, we can say it's typically been applied in a statistical point of view, and it works by organizing items into products or clusters on the basis of how closely things are arranged. Example will be helping to give you an idea. If we want to survey the general health of the college student in a state consisting of 5,000 colleges, here we consider each college as a cluster, and now we select several colleges and conduct the survey. Now, the fifth one is subsampling or two-stage sampling. As the name denotes itself, the subsampling refers to collecting data in two or more stages at a successive level. A sampling method in which a sample is selected in stages is called as subsampling. And in this method, sampling units at each stage are subsampled from the unit chosen at the previous stage. The first stage or the primary units are selected from the population, and from that, the first stage, we are further be doing the second stages of sampling. For example, in collecting data on urban households, we might begin with the first stage of identifying a randomly selected group of cities. And then what we'll be doing, we'll be taking the second sample. Second sample is further being done by taking the second stage as sample households are randomly within those cities. That is, we are taking the sample, first we'll be taking a sample, and then we are doing again sampling from the information provided or with the first sample. That is what is called subsampling or two-stage sampling. This is all about random sampling methods. Now next is non-random sampling methods. These are the kinds of methods which is purely based on investigators or an individual's perspective. So these are mainly of three types. Let's focus on to deep. First one is purpose or judgment sampling. In this sampling method, no systematic sampling or random or anything is further being done. Here, the investigator only have the power to make decisions whether to accept a kind of a population or to accept or reject any other kinds of sampling, etc. It's purely dependent on the investigator's perspectives and the kind of thinking ability. And we can say some criteria of selection is laid down and the items are selected accordingly. Even the judgment of the investigator has a vital role to play in collecting the information. All the items do not have the chance of being selected or rejected in a purposive sample. The sampling units are selected according to the personal judgment of the investigator, depending on the objective of the survey. And this method is also called deliberate sampling method. Here, we are doing a particular kind of sampling purely based on, if I am an investigator or a kind of a person who is collecting data, it's purely based on a type of what I need to collect and what I need to accept and what I need to be included in the sample. Next is quota sampling. It's also being called, it's a type of a judgmental kind of sampling. And in this method, we can say only one difference is that a special kind of a characteristics features or a quota is further being placed for collecting a particular kind of information. For example, for collecting data from a particular kind of a rural area, we focus on certain kinds of characteristics like age, religion, rural or urban salary groups, etc. Each interviewer is asked to collect information accordingly to that particular characteristics, but the choice of selection of respondent, that's what kind of a respondent that I have to collect an information, is further being left to my personal opinion or to the judgment of the investigator. The reliability of this method, if I am an investigator, purely depends on the efficiency, integrity, and skill of me or an investigator. I'm telling an example. If I'm an investigator, it is purely dependent on my angle or perspective of collecting information based on these characteristics. Finally, the last one is convenience sampling. As the name denotes itself, it's also being called as chunk, which refers to the fraction of the population being investigated. The selection is neither based on random nor judgment, but purely on convenience. That is, convenience may be in regard to place, time, availability, or resources. If I'm an investigator who is allocated to collect certain kinds of information, I personally don't have any other kinds of interest to go to the particular place and collect information. So what will I do is that I'll either have a telephonic conversation or I'll be putting a kind of a mail or forwarding a mail to them or a letter to them, etc. So it's completely dependent on my convenience on how to collect a particular kind of data. So sampling obtained from readily available sources such as telephone directory, automobile registration records, etc. And in simple words, we can say it may be in regard to place, time, availability, or resources of that particular person. That's all about it. Thank you.